Welcome to the Cambridge Financial Podcast with Bert Salazar, CEO at Cambridge Financial Partners, LLC. This podcast is all about tax-preferred retirement planning, economics, financial risk management, and achieving a risk-free and successful financial life. Now, your host, Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar. Bert Salazar.
Hey, good day, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. This is episode 113 of Your Tax-Free Life podcast. As always, I'm excited to be here with you, as I am every single week. Today's episode is how to rope-a-dope your retirement to success. And this is going to be a good one because it's going to bring to many of you a lot of memories from the great Muhammad Ali back in his days of the rope-a-dope in boxing and the different techniques that he used. But then how do we apply it to your retirement plan, and your retirement distribution process? So once again, I'm excited to be here with all of you. And for those of you that already know this, obviously just bear with me, but there are some of you that do not remember Muhammad Ali. And obviously, because of the fact that I work primarily with retirees and pre-retirees, most of you know exactly who I'm talking about. He was the greatest boxer of all times. And he created something that he called the rope-a-dope. How do you rope someone to become a dope? And he basically, the way he did it is he kind of lured opponents to the ropes, and then they would punch themselves out. So he would just stand there and take all kinds of punches. And by doing that, the boxers that he was fighting they had a false sense of security because since they were doing all the hitting and Muhammad Ali was taking all the punches, they thought that perhaps Muhammad Ali was tired or, was not as in good a shape as he should have been or whatever that may be. So they continued to punch away, and then eventually they would punch themselves out of the game, and then Muhammad Ali would come back and knock them out, at later rounds. He obviously, because of the rope-a-dope, he won a lot of fights, but he also took a lot of punches with the rope-a-dope, and many think that, that's one of the reasons why he got aggravated Parkinson's so early in life, and then obviously lived with that disease for many, many years until he passed away. One of the greatest fights that I ever saw was Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Especially because Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman at a point in time in his life. I think Muhammad Ali was like 92 years old. Now, I'm only kidding, but he was pretty old. But George Foreman was on top of the world. I mean, he fought everybody, from Joe Frazier to Ken Norton to all the great fighters of the time. And none of them would last any more than 2 to 3 rounds with George Foreman. He was young, he was big, he was strong, he was powerful, he was fast. And when they signed the fight between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, nobody bet on Muhammad Ali except for Muhammad Ali. And obviously the rest is history because, Muhammad Ali used a rope-a-dope against George Foreman. And at the end of the 7th round, George Foreman was all punched out. And then Muhammad Ali came back in the 8th round and knocked him out for good. So that was a hell of a fight, and it was one that I remember vividly for watching it through pay-per-view at that point in time. Now, you would wonder, well, Bert, what does the rope-a-dope have to do with my retirement? Or what does it do with your retirement? Well, I would argue just about everything, and you'll kind of see me and you'll hear me walk you through the reasons why your retirement plan is just like the rope-a-dope. Think of it this way. I don't know if you guys have heard the story of the frog in the pot of water. If you take a pot of water and you heat it up to the point of becoming boiling water, and then you take a frog and you dump it into that pot of water, the frog immediately is going to jump out. Why? Because that water is extremely hot. It's burning hot, and frogs are not gonna. They don't like that. But if you take a cool pot of water and you put a frog in it, and then little by little you start to raise the temperature in that pot, that frog is going to burn to death and won't even know it. Why? Because a frog is not going to be able to tell the differences in heat and in temperature from 1 minute to the next. Now, again, you may wonder why the pot of water and the frog will come into play. Is because Americans, for the most part, when it comes to their retirement accounts, are actually the frog in the burning pot of water. Now, when it comes to your retirement planning, the decisions that you make regarding retirement, you can either be the windshield or you can be the bug. It's entirely up to you. By the way, if you hear me talking a little bit funny, I had oral surgery over a week ago, and I have a little plate on the top of my mouth, so it's giving me a little bit of a lisp. So just bear with me. It's not that I have a new accent that I need to become good at. But moving along with the rope-a-dope and the frog of water. Well, most retirement accounts are dormant and are being rope-a-doped by the government, the IRS, and financial institutions. And one of the things that I notice when I visit with many of my online community, that some of them actually become clients afterwards, most of them are suffering from the same things. The retirement accounts are dormant. They're just sitting there. And they're either doing contributions or they're not doing contributions. But at the end of the day, all of these plans were designed by the government and the IRS. And obviously, financial institutions also benefit from it because you have to leave your money in those accounts, for many, many years before you can have access to it. And therefore, they're benefiting tremendously from the fees and expenses that they charge on those accounts. Now, the other thing that I've noticed is that retirement accounts are being allowed to either increase or decrease in value at random. There's no rhyme or reason for that. So I don't care whether you're working with a financial advisor or not. Most financial advisors are not money managers. They're gathering assets. That's all they're doing. And then they put them into a portfolio. And most of them, by the way, do a lousy job in servicing those accounts and in visiting with their clients on a quarterly basis, that whenever we have something like what has happened lately with obviously the bear market and the depreciation of value in retirement accounts, by the time they contact you, it's way too late, because many of them won't even return your calls because they're afraid that you're going to be screaming at them because of the fact that your 401k may have become a 201k, or you have lost a lot of money in your retirement accounts, IRAs, 403bs, etc. Now, most of the surveys that I have seen regarding retirement accounts show that Americans love a tax-free retirement, but only about 94% of them actually, and 94% of them don't know how to achieve it. So only about 6% of Americans understand how to create tax-free retirement accounts. I would argue that 6% is working with someone probably like me, who happens to be a tax planner and a retirement strategist, because otherwise 94% of them are not doing any of that whatsoever. Now, most retirement accounts grow tax deferred, but so does the tax liability. And that's one of the major problems that Americans are going to have to deal with in retirement, and that you will have to deal with in retirement, because you're going to end up paying the IRS 5 to 8 times more in taxes than you were supposed to. Because always remember that what belongs to the IRS will always belong to the IRS. So when you put money in a 401k, an IRA, or 403b, or any other type of tax-deferred retirement account or pension account, the money that you put in is pre-tax. The money grows tax-deferred, but then when you pull the money out, you got to pay taxes on the whole thing. So if you were in the 30% tax bracket and you're making a $10,000 contribution to your retirement account, let's say a 401k in this case, you should have paid the IRS $3,000 in taxes because you were at the 30% tax bracket when you made that $10,000 contribution. But the IRS decided to allow you to go ahead and continue to use their money, so they basically lend you those $3,000 so you could put them in your retirement account. So remember, as your assets grow on the $7,000 that you deposited this year, and if you do so every year, then obviously the growth on that money as well. But then the $3,000 is also growing. But that one is growing on behalf of the IRS, not on your behalf. So although there's going to be a faster growth when you put $10,000 as opposed to $7,000, the net account value, whether you do it after tax or pre-tax, as long as your tax bracket remains the same, is going to be identical because of the fact that you got to pay that money to the IRS, because that 30% that belong to the IRS will always, always, always belong to the IRS. Now, most Americans are not aware of that. I have talked to a number of new clients that have basically said to me, Bert, I didn't know I had to pay taxes on my retirement accounts. And that's something that you need to make certain that you understand how it is that you manage that. Now, retirement accounts are not being coordinated with Social Security and Medicare. And that's another reason why the government and the IRS and financial institutions are rope-a-doping your retirement accounts. And guess who the dope is in that formula? Well, you are, because you're not doing due diligence and you're not doing an adequate job to manage those retirement accounts effectively and efficiently from a business perspective. So now when I say they're not being coordinated with Social Security and Medicare, and that's a big issue, because now that's going to bring me to, provisional income calculations, which, by the way, I know the vast majority of advisors you're dealing with are not talking to you about provisional income calculations. And what provisional income calculation does is that it determines what percentage of your Social Security benefits are going to be taxed in retirement. It will also determine by what percentage are your Medicare premiums going to be once you get to your retirement age. And the reason for that is as follows. When you retire and you start taking Social Security benefits, you have to do provisional income calculations. Now, your accountant will do this for you. Actually, the software program that your accountant is going to use will do that. But I do provisional income calculations for each and every one of my clients on an annual basis in order to determine what's going to be that taxation at some point in time in the future. So I do fast forward planning when it comes to Social Security taxation and overall taxation as well. So how do you determine what percentage of your Social Security benefits are going to be taxed? Well, in the year that you start taking your Social Security benefits, then you have to take 50% of those benefits and you have to add it to the tax equation. On top of that 50%, you have to add all your ordinary income. So that means that if you continue to work after you retired, whether you did it on a full-time basis or on a part-time basis, it doesn't matter. Any W-2s, any 1099 income that you generate will get added on to the provisional income calculation, along with 50% of whatever the Social Security benefits you received for the year, in order to determine what percentage of that Social Security benefit is going to be taxed. But it doesn't stop just at the ordinary income. You also have to add all the dividends and capital gains that you obtained to that year. So now you got 50% of Social Security benefits added to the calculation. You have 100% of your ordinary income, which would be your 1099s, your W-2s. And by the way, any distribution that you obtain from your retirement accounts, whether they're a pension, whether there's a 401k distribution, an IRA distribution, a SEP distribution, a 403B distribution, some kind of a deferred compensation program distribution, in which you're going to be receiving a 1099-R, R for Romeo. Those amounts are also going to be added to the provisional income calculation formula. And then last but not least is going to be the interest on municipal bond funds. Yes, you heard me right. Although municipal bond funds are received federal income tax-free, the amount of money that you generate out of a municipal bond fund will be added onto the provisional income calculation in order to determine what percentage of your Social Security benefits are going to be taxed in retirement. So when you factor all those numbers, if you exceed a certain threshold, then up to 50% of your Social Security benefits will be taxed in retirement. And if you exceed and you go above the second threshold, then up to 85% of your Social Security benefits are going to be taxed in retirement. So now think of it this way. You guys have your rope-a-dope retirement accounts in place in which you're not doing anything, but you're not understanding the negative impact that those accounts are going to have on your overall retirement distribution planning. Because not only do you have to pay taxes on those retirement accounts as you take them out, but most important, those retirement accounts are also going to have a negative impact, or could have a negative impact, on the taxation of your Social Security benefits and also on the amount of premium that you pay on Medicare. So it's a triple whammy from a taxation standpoint, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're digging a hole, and the hole is getting deeper and deeper, and you'll get to the point where you're not going to be able to get out. And that is one of the reasons why I say that retirement accounts are not being coordinated with Social Security and Medicare, because if you do it the right way, then you should not have to pay taxes on your Social Security benefits, and you should be able to generate a lot of tax-free income. But this is not a podcast for that type of conversation. Now, retirement accounts are not being coordinated with pensions and or self-created pensions. So if you have a pension, or you have a self-created pension, then you need to pay particular attention to your retirement accounts, because you don't want to compound that problem of taxation, which is going to be a really, really big one at some point in time in the future. Also, you have to consider, where do you think that taxes are going to be in the future? Do you think they're going to be lower than they are today? Do you think they're going to be at the same level that they are today? Or do you think they're going to be higher than they are today? Well, I would argue, for those of you that choose higher, you are absolutely correct. Taxes are going to have to go a lot higher in the future, or our country's going to go bankrupt, because we have to pay for the mess that we're in today, not only because of our national debt, but all the unfunded liabilities for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Part D, and the interest on the ever-longing national debt. Now, retirement accounts are not being coordinated with 7702 plans and municipal bonds. So what if you structured a retirement distribution plan with a 7702 plan, which is a cash value life insurance plan, and or municipal bonds? Well, if you're not coordinating those assets correctly, then there goes the taxation of your Social Security benefits, and there goes the increase on the premium on your Medicare accounts, and that's not something you want to do. You know, the road to hell is paved with a lot of good intentions, and you don't want to be in a position that you became a really good saver. You put a lot of money away in your pre-tax retirement accounts, and now you're paying an enormous price because nobody cares what the score of the game is at halftime. There's only one score that counts, and that's at the end of the game. So when you get to retirement, that's the beginning of the second half of the game. So now, if you're not prepared for that, and if all the planning you've done has been through the accumulation stage, and you never gave any thought to the distribution stage, then you shouldn't be upset when your tax bill goes up, because of the fact that even though you may be retired and you may be receiving, for many of my clients, they receive even more money in retirement than they did before they were working. But even if you receive less money, well, guess what? A lot of the deductions, exemptions, and credits that you were receiving while you were employed, you're no longer receiving. So even if you're making the same amount of money or less, your tax liability may be higher because you don't have any safety net and or shield that you can that you can use in order to offset the taxation of your retirement distribution planning. Now, retirement accounts are not being coordinated with real estate investments. Many of my clients are invested in real estate. Some of them, they like the idea of fixing properties and reselling them and flipping them. Others buy rental property that they keep for the long term, so that way they have guaranteed cash flow coming into them on a monthly basis, and they have all types of deductions and exemptions and credits, and they also enjoy the capital gains and growth of that piece of property or that real estate property portfolio. But you have to be able to coordinate all of that with your retirement accounts. Otherwise, you know what? What I always say to many of my clients, you're going to be, you can either be the windshield or you can be the bug. It's up to you. Sadly enough, 99% of the people that I engage for the first time, are being rope-a-doped by the IRS and the government and financial institutions, because they're just there sitting idle, thinking that all they needed to do was just put money away and hope that that money would grow tax deferred. They didn't understand all the other intricacies that were so critical in order to achieve a successful retirement plan. Now, taxable and tax deferred IRS buckets contain too much money in account values. So if you're maxing out your 401ks and your IRAs every year, and that's all you're doing, then your taxable bucket and your tax deferred bucket is going to be overflowing. And when it overflows, guess what's going to happen to your tax liabilities in retirement? Guess what's going to happen to that provisional income calculation that we just talked about? Guess what's going to happen to your Medicare premium? Guess what's going to happen to your Social Security benefits and their taxation? By the way, if you pay taxes on your Social Security benefits, historically, you're going to run out of money before you run out of life 5 to 8 years sooner than expected, because the paying of taxes on Social Security accounts creates a gap. It creates a hole, and you have to be able to plug that hole. And how are you going to do it? Well, you got to take more money out of your retirement accounts and pay more in taxes in order to plug that hole. And eventually, that hole is going to get so big, because taxes will continue to go up, then the money that you're now liquidating will be totally exhausted, and therefore you're going to run out of money before you run out of life. Now, another big issue, and this brings me back to the provisional income calculation, is that retirement accounts are not being coordinated with your deductions, exemptions, and credits. And by the way, this is a secret, so I'm going to speak very, very softly, so you don't tell anyone else. This is just for us. There is a way that you may be able to take money out of your retirement accounts and not have to pay federal income taxes on those distributions. Yeah, Bert, is that true? Of course it is. Now, most of your financial advisors are not able to tell you that, because they don't specialize in tax planning. But if you do it the right way, you can take money out of your 401ks and your IRAs and your 403bs and other pension accounts and be able to use a standard deduction offset and not have to pay taxes on those. But in order for you to be able to accomplish that, you're going to have to have the ability to do tax planning calculations every year and set your accounts up in such a way that instead of having an overflow of retirement assets in those retirement accounts, you're going to have the optimum amount only which is going to be needed for you to take the most amount of money out of those accounts on a tax-free and or a tax-preferred basis. Now, most Americans and most of the new clients and most of my online community that I engage for the first time, unless some of you that have been listening to me for years now are doing something about it, most Americans have not created Roth IRA transitioning programs. They have not created Roth conversion tactical distribution programs. They haven't even created what is known as a backdoor Roth IRA. So how do you expect to be successful in life if you're not doing your due diligence? If you're allowing your enemies, in this case the government, the IRS, and financial institutions, to rope-a-dope you silly, and you are actually, they're actually against the rope, and you think you got them beat, and they're going to come back after a few rounds, and they're going to come back and they're going to knock you out. How do you think you're going to win that battle? There's no way you're going to be able to win unless you have a tactical retirement blueprint put together for you, and that you manage it from one year to the next. Now, I always say that fools always part with their money. So once again, where do you think taxes are going to be in the future? If you don't have any type of tax leverage, or you don't have any type of tax safety net, then now the IRS is going to determine what percentage of your retirement assets is going to belong to them. Because at some point in time in the future, when it's time for retirement, they're going to dictate what percentage of that pot they're going to be receiving from one year to the next, and you have no control over that one whatsoever. The other thing that's very sad is that 99% of Americans will not know how much income they will generate in retirement from one year to the next. And that's very, very sad. And that's more of a lack of preparation planning than anything else. Because if you don't know what your guaranteed cash flow is going to be in retirement from one year to the next, then you really don't have a retirement plan. And that's something that is very, very sad to see, but I see it every single day. Now, 99% of Americans have retirement assets, but they don't have a retirement plan. Again, they have the tools, but they don't know how to use the tools. They have the golf balls, they have the golf clubs, they have the golf shoes, but they don't have the swing, and most important, they don't know how to play that retirement course, that golf course, or the golf course of retirement. They don't know how to do that. Now, I would argue that your financial advisors are mostly just gathering your assets, your retirement assets, while getting paid fees and commissions. Very, very few financial advisors that I have ever talked to are actually retirement strategists. So think about the people that you're doing business with. Think about how proactive they're being with you. They are being with you when it comes to managing your retirement assets. Are they being very proactive in the sense of doing asset allocation? Are they being proactive in doing tax allocation? Because if it's important to do asset allocation so you don't find yourself with having all of your eggs in one basket, it is probably even more important to do some tax allocation as well, so that way you don't find yourself in the middle of the ocean in international waters on a dinghy with no paddles because of improper tax planning that your advisor either failed to do or was not aware how to do on your behalf. So those are things that are very, very critical. And if you think about the advisors that you're dealing with, what kind of advice are you getting? Are they assisting you with creating guaranteed paychecks and guaranteed cash flow in retirement? If they're not doing that, they're not really retirement strategists. They're just gathering your assets. They're investing them. They're putting them into a portfolio. And maybe on a good day, they'll visit with you once a year just to review the asset allocation. Do we need to move a little bit of money here or a little bit of money there? And that's about it, because they don't have the wherewithal to be able to manage your assets the way that retirement assets should be managed and coordinated with your entire retirement distribution planning process. Always remember that if you want to be successful in your financial life, and I would also argue in your personal life, you have to stop looking at your finances and your decision making in your personal life. You have to stop looking at them through a microscope, and you need to start looking at them through a telescope. Because when you look at those financial decisions and your entire world through a telescope, the view is going to change. The view is going to allow you to see the impact of your retirement distribution, the impact that it will have on your Social Security benefits, or on your Medicare benefits, on your 7702 plans, on your municipal bond funds, and all of the other things that we have talked about, because now you're going to have a clear view, and perhaps you'll even be able to create a clear vision along those lines as well. Now, I always say that financial freedom actually begins between the ears. You know, you have a lot of gray matter inside your head, so you need to start using it. You need to start using it in a way that is going to better not only yourself, but is also provide a betterment for your family, you know, when you're no longer here. You know, creating retirement distribution planning in which you will never run out of money before you run out of life, and neither will your surviving spouse and or your family members, is paramount. But every time I take a look and do an audit on retirement accounts, those things have never been taken into consideration. And I have never met anyone, especially a retiree, that did not enjoy guaranteed paychecks in retirement like you would from a traditional pension and or Social Security benefits. Now, also remember that traditional retirement accounts are controlled by the IRS, and they can change the rules of engagement at any point in time. So what I recommend to all of you is you have to control the distribution of your retirement assets and their timing. And you do that by creating tax-free retirement plans in which you and only you will determine when to pull the trigger, how and for how much. And if you have control of those assets and now they're tax-free and they're guaranteed to you and your family, and you have those guaranteed paychecks coming in every single month, no matter what, then all you have to do is enjoy life. And as a good friend of mine says, you have to wake up on the green side of the grass every day, and life is good from that point forward. So that's important to note. So at the end of the day, and this is an advice that I've given before, but it is important that I share it with you and that I give it to you every single day, is that you have to stop playing checkers with your retirement, and you need to start playing chess. Because the IRS, the government, and financial institutions have always played chess with your retirement accounts while you were sitting there idling, just playing checkers. You're never going to be able to beat them unless you make a paradigm shift in how you manage your retirement assets and how you promote your retirement distribution planning to a much higher level at some point in time in the future. Now, for those of you that want to pick my brain and you want to reach out to me, please feel free to call me at area code 786-766-1042. You can also send me an email at Bert, B-E-R-T, at bertsalazar.com, BERTSALAZAR.com. And always remember that my goal for each and every one of you is to kind of help you change the way that you see things, because when you change the way that you see things, the things that you see change. So once again, thank you for your time today. I'll talk to you next week. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy. Talk soon. Bye-bye.